One, breaking news. The New York Times reporting President Biden has told an ally, a close ally, he is considering whether or not to stay in the race for president. Two, faith, family, and freedom on this 4th of July. Let's take a moment to focus on family with Duck family treasures Jep and Jessica Robertson on their new book, Dear Valor. 3, Fox News legal correspondent Shannon Bream, the host of Fox News Sunday, on whether we are just moments away, maybe days away, at the most weeks away from Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page, market to market, coast to coast, on terrestrial radio, and on demand, whether or not you're on the treadmill or in traffic, by hitting subscribe at Apple or on Spotify. But if you want to hang out with us every Monday through Thursday live at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, just head on over to YouTube and hit subscribe. Set some reminders. Jump into the comments section. Become part of the Willisha. Hang out with us here on the Will Cain Show. It is July 3rd. What a great day to hang out. Only real debate when it comes to American holidays is what takes first place, 4th of July or Thanksgiving. Two holidays whose traditions never get old, you know? Football and turkey, all-day family. Thanksgiving, properly rated. 4th of July, all-day fireworks, sun, water, lake, family, friends, properly rated. You know, I can think about all the different 4th of Julys because, you know, I'm a big sports fan, where I've spent scrolling on my phone to see if there's a Woj bomb from ESPN. You know what a Woj bomb is, right? Adrian Wojnarowski, NBA insider, or Shams over at wherever Shams is now, The Athletic, breaking some news about NBA free agency, which all too often lands right around the 4th of July. You know, and like, oh, did my Dallas Mavericks sign insert failed free agency pursuit there? Whatever you want. Dwight Howard, Shaquille O'Neal, LeBron James, it doesn't matter. Fail. As a matter of an aside, we did succeed this year. We signed Klay Thompson. But the point is, like, 4th of July has kind of been sitting there with an NBA free agency and updates in the sense that something could happen, some bomb could drop, a Woj bomb. It's different this year. Most of the news world is off. They're already on vacation. I'll be filling in for Jesse Waters on Jesse Waters Primetime tonight. But it feels like there is a bomb ready to drop in news. It feels like any moment, sincerely, no hyperbole, no exaggeration, it does feel like at any moment we could find out that it's no longer President Joe Biden running for president, that it's just we're on the doorstep of Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. In fact, let's start there today. We'll break it down a little bit later as well in a conversation with Shannon Bream, but let us start with story number 1. New York Times. Biden told an ally he is weighing whether to continue in the race. Katie Rogers reporting at the New York Times says President Biden has told a key ally, somebody very close to him, that he knows he may not be able to continue and he may not be able to salvage his candidacy if he can't convince the public in the coming days that he's up for the job. As part of that attempt to convince the public, he will appear with ABC's George Stephanopoulos. Let's never forget that when they attempt to turn to a mainstream objective journalist, they can almost inevitably land upon someone who used to be a spokesperson for a Democratic president. In a taped interview on Friday, set to interview on Sunday, Joe Biden will sit down with George Stephanopoulos. But the knives are out. The questions are being asked. The White House press conference right now is an absolute bombardment for Karine Jean-Pierre. They've tried every excuse possible. It's a cold. They're still running with it was a cold. He was overprepared. He had jet lag. He had a bad night. When it came to the CNN presidential debate last Thursday, but it's not stopping. It's not stopping what is feeling like a snowball, gathering momentum, gathering mass as it rolls downhill, about to run over Joe Biden. New York Times columnist Ross Douthat tweeted out, I think it's going to be Kamala. It's increasingly looking like it will be Kamala Harris, not if, but when they replace Joe Biden. First of all, if you want the biggest piece of evidence on why he will soon no longer be the candidate for president, this is an Open Labs set of political polls. That's inside the Democratic House. Shannon Bream, who hosts Fox News Sunday, will be joining us a little bit later on the Will Cain Show, wondered aloud who leaked these polls. These are inside polls for Democrats. North Carolina, Trump up 11. Georgia, Trump up 10. Arizona, Trump up 10. Nevada, Trump 9. Pennsylvania, necessary swing state to the presidency, Trump 7. Michigan, a report a few days ago that Governor Gretchen Whitmer said to Democrats, said to Biden that Michigan is no longer in play, according to these polls. Michigan, Trump plus 7. Wisconsin, Trump plus 4. New Hampshire, Trump plus 3. Virginia, Trump plus 0.6, and on and on. There is an electoral map, electoral college map that shows under these conditions, this is Trump winning over 300 of the electors in the electoral college. This is a landslide, Trump versus Biden. So it makes you wonder, well, then how does everybody else poll? Better than Biden is the answer. Honestly, Pete Buttigieg probably polls the best. Gavin Newsom still polls better, but better than Biden. Kamala Harris. You ask, well, Will, if Kamala Harris polls worse than Buttigieg or Newsom, why do you think it will be Kamala Harris? I have 93 million reasons. $93 million raised by the Biden campaign that can't just be transferred over to Gretchen Whitmer. $93 million that has to stay within the campaign, which includes Kamala Harris. $93 million that tells you it'll soon be Trump versus Kamala. It's pretty amazing to see the party that has sold itself on saving democracy. And remember all of the links we've gone and the sacrifices we've made to save democracy. We've censored the First Amendment. We've discredited the Supreme Court of the United States. We've run hoax after hoax out against any political candidate. We've interrupted the democratic process for anybody on the Democratic side that would want to run for president, all in pursuit of, quote unquote, saving democracy. But now, in order to save democracy, we have to set aside democracy. A handful of political insiders and media elite have decided the president's cognitive ability, no, not that it's gotten in the way of running the nation, no, that it's dangerous to be involved in multiple foreign wars, even if by proxy, with a president that should probably be subject to the 25th Amendment. No, not because it's bad for America, but because, hey, you know what? The public saw the emperor has no clothes. The public saw what we've been covering up for a year. No patience, by the way. No sympathy for media today that has all of a sudden seen the light and come to Jesus. They're not interested in America. They're interested in power. So what they've seen is Joe Biden can't beat Donald Trump. Because of that, they've now decided it's okay to tell the truth. But for the party that is here and the media willing to be their lapdogs to save democracy, they're willing to set aside the democratically elected candidate in a Democrat primary, the will of the people, the vote of the people. This is what Democrats said they wanted. They wanted Joe Biden. But now because Joe Biden can't win, the media elites, the political elite, whoever that may be, Barack Obama, whoever that may be, are ready to set aside democracy to save democracy. They're ready to set aside Joe Biden to make it Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. We'll get into that just a little bit later here today with the host of Fox News Sunday, Shannon Bream, coming up on the Will Cain Show. But next, faith, family, and freedom. You're ready. You're ready to fire up the fireworks and the barbecue. You're ready to crack open a cold one. You're ready to celebrate America. Faith, family, and freedom. Let's focus in for a moment on family with Jep and Jessica Robertson. Next on the Will Cain Show.
Well, they say there are certain things that shouldn't be brought up at the kitchen table, but not here at the Duffys. So pull up a chair and join me, Rachel Campos Duffy.
And me, former U.S. Congressman Sean Duffy, as we share our perspective on the discussions happening at kitchen tables across America.
And we're going to share some real-life solutions as well to the everyday issues that you all talk about. And we're going to talk about some of those things that we agree on.
And some that we don't.
Download from the kitchen table, the Duffys at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you download podcasts.
July 16th on Fox. We're deep in the heart of Texas, where the game's biggest stars align for the Midsummer Classic.
Stars are everywhere. Caught by Aaron Judge. He is Superman. Harper, the swing of his life.
The MLB All-Star Game, July 16th on Fox.
The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown. Every Monday and Friday, Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you. Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Real life Veep. You ever see Veep on HBO? Julia Louis-Dreyfus playing a character that is so reminiscent of Kamala Harris. It is the Will Cain Show. Streaming live at foxnews.com and on the Fox News YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. And you can join the community. Hang out with us here on the Will Cain Show. Like Try Trend, who says on YouTube, Kamala versus Trump is like someone in elementary school versus someone with a PhD. Deanne Smith said, if Kamala had addressed the border issue in the way she should have, she'd be a shoo-in post-debate. I'm not so sure about that, Deanne. I think that once the attention fully turns to Kamala, the question will be, will she, for the first time in her career, be embraced by the public? Remember, this is a lady who polled at something like 1% in the Democrat primary. And you can also be guaranteed that if it's Kamala, we're about to rewind to 2020. We're about to be inundated with everything is racist. You don't think Kamala would be a great president? You're a racist. And the interesting question will be, what's the tolerance now? What's the appetite for the public to be accused of everything under the sun, no matter your criticism, coming from a source of racism? Paul Woodward says on YouTube, Kamala won't be able to stop laughing to even debate.
We did it, Joe.
Yeah. Oh.
We did it, Joe. You're about to do it, Kamala. Welcome to the presidential race. But we're on the verge. We're on the eve, 4th of July eve. And so let's get into a little bit of Americana, a little bit of America. Let's get into family. Let's talk to the host of Duck Family Treasure on Fox Nation, the author of a brand new book, Dear Valor. It's Jep and Jessica Robertson here on the Will Cain Show. Hey, guys. Glad to have you.
What's up, Ryan?
Thanks.
Hey, I'm a big fan, man. I used to watch you on ESPN all the time. Hey, you upgraded.
I did. Thank you, Jep. I hope you still watch me on Fox. Man, that means a lot. Thank you. I'm been a big fan as well. I love, for what it's worth, duck hunting. I can't pretend to be an expert, Jep, but I mean, that's, if you had me rank hunting when I was growing up, it was number one, duck. And the number one I'm working on trying to get back to. So maybe you invite me over to Louisiana. It's a short hop from Texas.
Absolutely, buddy.
I'd love to. Let's start with Dear Valor. So I'm going to start with you guys telling me about the book, and then we'll kind of dive into just some different things about why family and different styles of family are so important. But Jessica, tell me about the book. Tell me about Dear Valor.
Yeah, so here's Dear Valor. It is a sweet adoption story we got to write with Brave Books. Our youngest is adopted, and it was a way that we can interact and tell some snippets of things that we've kind of come across with our son being a Black child in a white family, adopted into a white family, things that he's had issues with, and other people ask him, why do you look different than your mommy and daddy? So Valor is a tiger, and he's adopted by lions, Fiona and Arthur, and kids ask him, why are you different from your mommy? And then he has to have those questions answered, and it's really a beautiful story of just unconditional love from a family, no matter where you come from.
That is awesome. I cannot wait to see it. Adoption it's so interesting. And, I don't know where we are in this stage, but it's something my wife and I have talked about. And it's like, I think, Jeff, as we talk, we're probably going to end up talking in some terms about faith. We'll talk about being called in some way. But I'm just kind of curious what led your family in this direction. What made you decide to adopt?
It was funny. It's like when I met Jessica, she said, when we were dating, she said, I want to have 5 kids. And I was like, that's a lot of kids. And we had 4 naturally. And then I went on a mission trip to the Dominican Republic, and our church was working with an orphanage there. And after meeting these kids, and we brought them some just, whitey tidy underwear and some Hanes t-shirts, and they cried their eyes out because they'd never got anything new like that as far as clothes. And I just thought, I want to take all these kids home with me right now. I got back from that trip and I told her, I was like, let's do adoption. Let's look into it.
I'd always wanted to, or I've been feeling that calling for a while. And so, after that, we were young. We had our 4 biological kids, and so when we were kind of our early 30s, we were kind of. I was feeling like, oh, this is something I feel called to do. And so I think just in this book, and it'll teach children how to empathize with kids that are maybe different and are adopted, and it's just a sweet story. It also talks about him wanting to find out more about his biological parents, which we had a closed adoption, but we will work hard if and when he ever wants to know about his biological parents, we will totally support him in that. And that is part of just the beautiful adoption story, and just loving unconditionally and being there for each other.
So, Jessica, I want to ask you this, both of you, and I want to be careful because I don't want to betray any confidences that aren't mine to betray. My family, my wife, if I'm being real, very involved as well. Foster care system, adoption, this whole process. So I do know something about this, but I say that humbly because I haven't crossed the bridge that you guys have crossed. But I do know that one of the wisest things you can do is to go into adoption or fostering eyes wide open, right? You have to know that you are, as you point out, whether or not it's race or whatever it may be, you can't go into it expecting it to be perfect and everything's going to be beautiful at all times. It's going to be hard on everyone, the child and you and everything. How do you kind of reckon? I think when you have a natural child, you can delude yourself a little more. I'm going to engineer this perfectly, right? But when you go into adoption, I think you almost have to be eyes wide open about sort of what the blessing is. Like, what's the outcome? What's an optimal? What is success, right? And success is, I've talked to my co-host Rachel Campos Duffy about this a lot. Success is love, right? In the end, that's all it is. It's simple. It's just love.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's definitely, it doesn't matter race, like you said. There's going to be challenges. We adopted Gus when he was 3 days old. We raised him, from 3 days on. His mommy, I think his birth mommy, got to hold him once, and she was unable to keep him. And we were so grateful that she had him. Like that's the beautiful story too of adoption. And so, but there have been challenges. We raised him just the same way as we raised our 4 biological, but there were genetic dispositions that he's different, and like
right.
with sensory issues, things that may come up. It doesn't matter. It's not a race thing. It is. It's different, raising a child that did not come from you, and you don't know what genetic dispositions they are going to bring.
Right. Genetics plays a huge role in who we are, and there's some familiarity might be the word, or comfort in a kid that is your offspring, your genetics, because you intuitively know how you would handle something. So how do you handle somebody who's kind of genetically similar to you? With adoption, you're kind of flying with different instruments, I don't know. So kind of, Jeb, would you just kind of like, I don't know, just put some flesh on that bone? Like can you give me an example or two of some challenges?
So, probably the saddest one I can think of is he was like 2.5 years old and he was in the bathtub and he was scrubbing his arms really hard. And I said, Gus, what's up, buddy? He said, I don't want to be brown. I want to be gray like you. And dude, my heart melted, and I was like, oh my gosh, I cried, and I was like, buddy, you were so beautiful. And we talked a lot about that, but it was was one of those things where he just wanted to look like us, just because he felt so different.
Sure. And he's also
right.
always been like a foot taller than any kid in his classroom. So he's also big for his age. And so he feels so different. And it's hard because as a parent, you're like, we love you unconditionally. But it's hard to relay that over to a child when they just want to feel normal. They want to feel like there's no difference. Right. And so we just are always
right.
over and over poured that into him. You're beautiful. God does not make mistakes. He designed you. And we're so grateful that God wanted us to be your parents.
I'm just guessing. And so I'm just having a conversation with you. I'm just guessing here. Like, I just want to be like you. I want to fit in. I want to be normal, whatever normal is, right? And so it seems to me like what you have to do, I'm guessing again, is you have to establish normalcy. I know this sounds trite, but you go back to like normalcy is love. Like that's the normal thing here. All the other stuff is, I don't believe in this like colorblind world and we ignore differences. No. We have to understand and acknowledge, but then we also understand their superficiality to a degree. They have limitations, our differences. And normal is I love you, just like I love him or her or the other four. And we're a family.
For sure. So many times I've said, there's nothing you could ever do, ever say, no action that will ever change my love for you. You're gonna have bumps in the road, and the same thing with our biological kids. They may do something wrong. It's just reaffirming. There's nothing you could ever say. It's just like our Father in heaven. Like He loves you, and when you can even a little bit grasp that love. I mean, we know how we love our children, but like think about that. The bigger picture. He is an amazing father. And so we're just trying to do the best we can, obviously raising our children, loving other people, anybody we come across. That's just showing the love of Jesus.
It's amazing. I mean, I don't know. I could have this conversation for a long time. I just think it's so fascinating to do this and to understand. I think you've learned something. My guess, Jeff, and you constantly are, we all are, but you're learning something that I don't have access to right now, right? That most people listening who haven't adopted just don't have access to. And you're learning about Gus. You're learning about your family unit. You're learning about yourself as a man. I don't know. You come out, it's kind of interesting. You come out of this, to be real, like with the insane amount of wisdom.
For sure. Dude, I mean, like, it's funny. Somebody told me the other day, if every evangelical church in the world, if one family adopted, we'd end orphans. There would be no more orphans. And I'm like, man, that is such a crazy, easy, seems like thing to do. And the crazy thing is those families would so love it just like we do. It's like the most awesome understanding of kind of how our faith works, and it's just I mean,
well, you go into it and you think too, it's like it became a question of why wouldn't we do this? Like we both wanted to, we were able to, we were capable, our kids wanted us to, and so but on the flip side is we've been so blessed by him in our lives. Like it's been, you go into it thinking,
right.
We're going to bless this, we're going to bring this child in, and we're going to love him unconditionally or her unconditionally. And it's been such a blessing on us and our entire family, all the aunts and uncles, cousins. It just exponentially, everyone loves him just beyond measure.
And by the way, I know stories because, again, my access is to it from maybe you adopted Gus, you said, at 3 days. So I have some experience later in life, and it's not always like, certainly not perfect. It's not always even like on the surface good. Sometimes it's very, very difficult and disruptive to the existing family. But the point is, right, that there is a different definition of what success is and what you are called to do. It's just different than organizing the perfect family. That's what, it's weird to say because that's all of our own goal, right? When you two started out, I was 28 when I had my first kid, I think. No, I wasn't. I was 31 or 2. The idea is it's all going to be perfect, right? and you just let go of perfect. It's just like that's not the point anymore. Like perfection and perfect families. You try, but that's not the point. I don't know. This is awesome. Dear Valor, incredible story. By the way, how old is Gus now?
He's
8 years old.
He's 8 and a 12-year-old body. So it's a big boy. He's awesome. Yeah.
Is he
Hey,
the
you might
youngest?
be seeing that kid on Sundays one day. I'm telling you, he's a good athlete.
Really?
Yep.
Is that right? Youngest then? Other 4 or older?
Yeah, we have 2 in college that are just got married a year apart. And then, yeah, we have a senior in high school and a 15-year-old boy. So, yeah, it's a big span there.
Yeah. Well, this is a cool book, Dear Valor. It's about this experience that you guys have had that, as I think you point out, I wish, it's hard for me to say the same thing, Jeff. I wish other people do it because then you look at yourself and go, well, Will, why haven't you done it? But I want to ask you guys about 4th of July as well. So how are you guys going to spend it? What are you going to do? You guys, by the way, for a lot of people, you are Americana. So how does Americana do 4th of July?
Well, we're actually celebrating with one of the great American sports, baseball, because Gus made it to All-Stars in baseball. And so we'll be spending our 4th at the baseball field. So it'll be
watching him
more
play.
American than that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's more American than baseball.
Travel sports. So that's I know how that goes. That defines your time in your life. Okay, cool. Yeah, baseball on the 4th of July, of course. And for everyone else,
celebrate a little early then.
Here we are.
Our little 4th of July. Yeah.
Yeah.
With our little faith,
Where are you
family,
guys?
freedom event.
Yeah, we did a big event at my brother's place, and so we had 1,000 people. It was open to the public.
Yeah.
We did that this past Sunday, so we do that every year. It's called Faith,
You did?
Family, Freedom. Yeah,
I forget, what part of Louisiana are you guys in?
unreal. It's like Northeast.
Oh, yeah. I know it. Yeah. Okay, I can't wait to get over to Monroe. I can't wait to hunt with you guys. I can't wait to read Dear Valor. I think everybody should check it out. And I just think, you may have been a fan of what I did or whatever I had to say on ESPN. I may have been a fan of, the entire family in Duck Dynasty and Duck Family Treasure. But I'm such a fan of what you shared with us today and what you're doing with your family and with your life. So, Jeff and Jessica Robertson, thank you guys so much for hopping on with us today on the Will Cain Show. Happy 4th of July.
Thank
You too.
Awesome story. Pick it up, Dear Valor. It's a children's book. What an awesome life experience. What an incredible story. I'm going to be buying it. Dear Valor, I want to read about this experience. Something I've always been personally intrigued by and feel some level of calling as well. I don't know that I ever will or what form it may take, but I don't know. Just feels like, family is so important. Don't you have more to give? More family? All right, let's get into what promises to be a gigantic week or couple weeks. It just feels like it's coming. It's coming. Something's coming. Could it be Trump versus Kamala? Next on the Will Cain Show with Shannon Bream.
I'm Emily Campagno, host of the Fox True Crime Podcast. On May 5th, 1993, 3 young boys were brutally killed in West Memphis, Arkansas, leading investigators to believe it was part of a satanic ritual. Jesse Miskelly, Jason Baldwin, and Damian Eccles were arrested and convicted of the crime, one they didn't commit, but it wasn't until 17 years later that they would regain their freedom, but not their innocence. Available now on Apple, Spotify, and FoxNewsPodcast.com.
This is an election year unlike any other.
That's why you need America's #1 most watched news source, Fox News. Stay with us.
All the way to election night.
The candidates
Are ready.
I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people.
We will fight for America like no one has ever fought before.
Americans across the country are ready.
And so are we.
This is Democracy 24.
Your freedom, your vote.
Fox News.
America is watching.
I'm Emily Campagno, host of the Fox True Crime Podcast. On May 5th, 1993, 3 young boys were brutally killed in West Memphis, Arkansas, leading investigators to believe it was part of a satanic ritual. Jesse Miskelly, Jason Baldwin, and Damian Eccles were arrested and convicted of the crime, one they didn't commit, but it wasn't until 17 years later that they would regain their freedom, but not their innocence. Available now on Apple, Spotify, and FoxNewsPodcast.com.
Two weeks ago, They told you not to believe your eyes. Don't believe your ears. It's all a cheap fake. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand. If you're on the treadmill, you're stuck in traffic, hit Spotify, Apple, subscribe. But every Monday through Thursday, if you want to hang out with us live, just go over to YouTube and hit subscribe to the Will Cain Show. You can see, for example, interviews with former President Donald Trump, Kevin Costner, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Dave Ramsey, and much, much, much more. Past episodes, exclusive interviews, or the every other week episode of Off the Rails with Will and Pete by subscribing on YouTube to the Will Cain Show. 2 weeks ago, headline CNN, right-wing media outlets used deceptively cropped video to misleadingly claim Biden wandered off at the G7 summit. Byline date, Friday, June 14th, 2024. June 15th, Washington Post, headline, cheap fake, Biden videos enrapture right-wing media, but deeply mislead. Byline, June 15th, 2024. New York Times, how misleading videos are trailing Biden as he battles age doubts. 2 weeks ago. Now the knives are out. Now, according to the New York Times today, they are reporting that Joe Biden has told allies, close allies, he's considering whether or not he should stay in the race for president. Let's break it all down with the host of Fox News Sunday and Fox News chief legal correspondent, Shannon Bream. I assume in her Washington, D.C. office. Nice.
It's a little messy, but yes,
DC.
I'm
Hey,
very
Shannon.
honored especially after that list of interviewees that you had just listed there. I'm in great company. Thanks for having me.
You are. It's getting big time. It's getting big time over here. At the
I've
Will
made
Cain
it.
Show. You have made it, Shannon. Last time I saw Shannon, she was dressed in an 80s jumpsuit, dancing like you've never seen the host of Fox News Sunday. I can promise you that. You never saw Chris Wallace dance like Shannon Bream.
Get him to wear the outfit. I'm going to call him.
Shannon, I was on with you a little bit earlier today on America's Newsroom. You and I both working on July 3rd. I find this I don't know, parting the clouds, this light that they have seen, this come to Jesus by the press, entirely. I'm what do you call it? I'm skeptical. I'm cynical. I'm not skeptical. I'm cynical. Because 2 weeks ago, they were selling me on cheap fakes. For the past year, they were calling it basically a conspiracy. And now it's different. And I don't want to ask you why. I think we know why. But I guess I want to ask you, what does it mean? What does it mean now that they're willing to tell the obvious truth?
Well, I think because if they have a stake in this race or they see it as something personal, they feel like they're going to, quote, lose. And so now it's a different story. I'm not saying for all people. I think that there are a lot of people that are good folks out there in the media working hard who will complain about the fact that the White House blocked access on many occasions and in many ways from this president that we haven't seen for several terms and several previous presidents. But the fact that on debate night, we had so many people out there like, ooh, this is surprising. And we know that they weren't surprised. A lot of people who were making those comments were not surprised. It was just that they could no longer hide it from the American public. So they had to feign some kind of surprise, like, oh, we didn't know he was in this rough of shape. A lot of them knew. And so for them now, they're trying to cover themselves that they hadn't probed and pressed harder with the White House or with the president. And they're afraid they're going to lose. If you're worried about the country, that's a different calculation than you are about worrying an election and losing an election.
That's what to me has been made so obvious. And it's like, you didn't care about the country. You cared about power. You didn't care about, the risk of, world wars on multiple fronts, even through proxy, being run by a man who is clearly diminished. You cared about the fact that he's diminishing your abilities to win. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you this, Shannon. You and I, we come at some of this from different places. I mean, literally, geographically, and personally from different places. What I mean by that is, I live in Dallas. I'm in New York on the weekends. I don't have a lot of personal interaction with people who would be, the mainstream media, who I am now criticizing today, right? You do. You live in Washington, D.C. You interact. You know a lot of these people as individuals. So, I want to ask you this because you would say, some of these are very good people. I am probably, Shannon, to a fault, willing to indict the entire class, right? I'm willing to indict the entirety. Like, where was the intrepid journalist willing to report the truth? Mm-hmm. You, perhaps more accurately, are, turning these people back into individuals. Well, there's some good ones and some that. What I wonder and where I get, Shannon, and by the way, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying I'm probably wrong, and you're probably right to do what you are doing. But they haven't given me the evidence from a distance to grant them that benefit of the doubt. And what I would say to them, or what I surmise, I'm curious what you say this is, maybe they're good people who just bought into a mass psychosis hysteria. Like, I think that what's happened is they believe Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. And if you believe that, then there is nothing really that is beyond the pale in order to save democracy. Yeah, tell lies, but also diminish the Supreme Court of the United States, whatever, because we've got Hitler on the doorstep. We got to save democracy. And that will make a lot of, as you point out, good people sick. Mm-hmm.
I do think that there is definitely a strain of that. And part of the problem we've had the last few years is that people have bled over from journalism into advocacy. And that's fine if that's what you do. If you're an advocate, if you're an opinion person, make that clear. I think the tricky part is people who are within the press corps who have maybe blurred that line and aren't willing to admit it. But I do think they think, those folks, that they're coming from a good place, that the country is under threat, as you described, the way that they view President Trump, that they have a duty to protect the country from that. But when it leaves you getting untethered from a neutral position and going into a biased or advocating kind of place, you need to disclose that because that's not journalism. I do think that there are people there in the press corps here in Washington who have pressed and they have called out the White House publicly and have said, we need more access to him. Why isn't he answering more questions? Everybody has seen when he's out at a press conference or any kind of availability that there's a list and you're supposed to ask this name next and you're supposed to be this person next. And, his suggestion that people get off topic if they ask him things that weren't part of the agreement. So I think that it's been very frustrating for a lot of people here in the press corps. I think that's different from the people who have decided, oh no, we're just going to advocate and look the other way because we dislike President Trump more than we're worried about President Biden.
What do you think happens next, Shannon? It feels like something's happening. It does feel like wheels are turning. I made an analogy earlier in the show to NBA free agency. Like, it just kind of feels like at any moment we're going to get a tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski saying that, so-and-so has signed with the Los Angeles Lakers. It feels like at any moment we're going to get a tweet. President Biden has decided not to seek re-election. But curious what you think is going on right now. The New York Times reporting that he told someone that he's weighing it. He's weighing his future. So what's going on behind the scenes?
You get this real feeling that if he sticks it out for a week or so, he's going to be okay. If he can ride out this turbulence. Now, over the weekend, of course, he spent the time with his family at Camp David. That was a prearranged family event. And they're going to be his biggest cheerleaders. We hear that, the First Lady and Hunter, his son, and others were saying to him, you got to fight, you got to stay in this. And your family, those are the closest advisors that he clearly listens to the most. But they're going to cheerlead and tell you, like all of us, I don't know. I my parents, unfortunately, at times were brutally honest with me, like, maybe that's not your thing. Maybe you don't try that anymore. Maybe we go a different path. But for him, the presidency is his thing. And I think they're trying to be very encouraging to him after a very tough night. Now, I think once they see elected lawmakers who are now worried about the down ballot impact and are now publicly speaking out because they worry about their races, I think that, we're hearing 25 House Democrats or more are adding to this list are going to come out and publicly call for him to step aside. Whether he can weather that remains to be seen.
Shannon, that's huge. Right? That's not media pundits. That's huge, right? Isn't it? 25 elected Democrats.
Those are people in your own party who are saying, we think for the good of the country or for the ticket, including our seats, they're trying to hold on to the Senate, trying to flip the House, and they see that slipping away. So you hear donors, these reports about donors saying that they maybe want their money back from the Biden campaign so they can throw it down ballot if he stays in. So he's got a lot of pressure. And I do think there's a, quote, freak out at the White House among a number of staffers who, again, they're worried about the personal impact too. Where does my career go from here if this whole thing falls apart? So There are definitely cracks in his support. For sure.
Yeah, that's another part of this, Shannon, because with all the blame, like he had a cold, he had jet lag, he's been traveling. Another thing that came out is he was overprepared / poorly prepared. And so it's a little bit like the staff is being thrown under the bus. It seems like he's under assault, and he is like we've never seen, by the way, in 4 years, at least when it comes to the media. And so what he's doing is he's making his circle of trust much, much smaller. And it seems to be directly like his family, like Hunter and Jill and the 85-year-old guy who's his good buddy, all these people that the Atlantic or Axios called the oligarchy. But who's on the outside of that bubble seems to be his staff. And he's kind of thrown his staff under the bus a little bit, it feels like. And that's another thing that's happening where the cracks in this entire Biden campaign administration presidency seems to be falling apart. And so I just kind of wonder, what's the straw that breaks the camel's back? Like, okay, you lose your staff. You lose 25 Democrats. You lose some donors. Like, when is it you've lost? When's the last straw laid on and the camel's back breaks for Biden?
Yeah, I would really watch this meeting tonight with the governors at the White House because Pritzker, Hochul, Newsom, people he really needs to be out there advocating for him. And listen, Newsom's already committed to he's going to be campaigning in Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire next week. So he's all in. And I think there's part of him that is very much trying to stay 100% in support of the president. So if this thing falls apart and somebody at some point says, let's pull Gavin Newsom into this conversation, he can say, I was out there campaigning for him. I stood by him, and I still stand by him. That's been his message. But this meeting tonight, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that, because if they come out convinced, like he's sharp, he's with it, he can move forward, they're going to immediately be advocates for him. If we hear sort of crickets chirping from the Hochul, the Pritzker, the others along that line who haven't already committed, as Newsom has, to these other campaign stops, I think that's going to be very telling, because he needs them to be out there to be surrogates. And listen, we've reached out to numerous Democrats, governors, to come on the show this weekend. We've reached out to the Biden campaign, as we do every weekend. And a lot of people are just kind of taking this wait and see attitude. And I'm saying, listen, this is do or die time. If you're going to go out there and advocate, this is it. So I think that governors meeting could be very telling tonight.
Oh, just out of curiosity, so you're booking Fox News Sunday. Yeah, it might be hard. It's such an important weekend to book because it feels like, again, these events are happening in real time.
So fast. Yeah.
But if you're a Democrat, I don't feel comfortable going on Fox News Sunday because, not because, it's a hostile environment, not any of that. Like, what am I supposed to say right now?
Right.
Because it could be by the time we get to Sunday that, like you pointed out, 25 Democrats have now sold him down the river. I don't, we've already talked about Lloyd Doggett, and I think a congressman from Maine and others have already said, no, he's got to go. So what do you say on Sunday? Do you look like a fool if you come out and go, I'm all in on Biden? Do you look early if you say he should go? I don't know what you say if you're a Democrat.
Yeah, well, last week we had Senator Fetterman, because he had been so full-throated in his defense, saying, listen, I know what it's like to have a bad debate and still win. He said a little curse word on Fox News Sunday because he felt that strongly about it. Like, these people need to, in his tweet, it was chill the F out. But on our air, he said something similar, because he's like, these people got to get over it. Like, this is the nominee and we're moving forward. Now, I can tell you, we're talking to a couple of Democrats who have publicly called for the president to step off the ticket. I think one of them will land on the show Sunday to explain why they think that's the way to move forward. Like I said, we're talking to the campaign, like, okay, bring us your best defense, attorney to come argue why this ticket needs to stick together as it is. So listen, between now and Sunday is a world of time in politics. And so we'll see where we are. But we thought this is a week to have Democrats come and have this conversation about how they move forward.
So, Shannon, is it your understanding, it's mine, tell me if we have this correct, the $93 million, I believe it is, that's raised by the Biden-Harris campaign, if Joe Biden drops out, that can't just be transferred over to Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer. Correct. Is that correct? And the only person, the only potential candidate that could inherit that $93 million is Kamala Harris?
Yeah, because she's part of the Biden-Harris ticket. So that's the argument that's been made in these behind-the-scenes conversations, that Do you want to unleash something where you have a free-for-all of a number of people who are in the bench we keep hearing about decide, okay, this is a historic opportunity. We all want to bite at the apple. Or do Democrats say we don't pull the plug on this thing unless we are already united behind who it's going to be? Is that the vice president? She's had terrible polling that's been worse than the president through most of his presidency, but she's getting a little bit of a bump now as she becomes a real possibility. She's within striking distance of this latest poll with, President Trump. How that would really play out head to head, it would be I can imagine that he's going to, if she ends up being the nominee instead, he's going to want to talk about the border 24/7 and the role that she's done as czar. But she is apparently the only one who could inherit that pocketbook, which will be critical whether Joe Biden stays on the ticket or not.
So what would happen? The donors would get a refund? If it goes to the convention or whatever and the delegates pick, say, Gretchen Whitmer, the $93 million, all those donors get a refund?
Well,
and then
I don't know.
Up to the new ticket to fundraise?
Well, think about if part of it is going through the DNC, I would imagine that their portion they can keep and would be able to try to funnel it to things that would help another candidate. You've got a number of outside groups that are responsible for a lot of this money too, but anything that's gone directly to the campaign, that's in question. We have read the articles and the reports that are out there with these donors, as we were talking about earlier, who've said, give me my money back so I can throw it down ballot and try to help House and Senate races. So I think because it's kind of unprecedented, nobody's exactly sure what would happen.
Right. And I don't know if you're talking about the mystery just regarding fundraising or about how they'd pick someone too. So they go to an open convention. I mean, obviously, whatever Joe Biden had to say would carry a ton of weight. Obviously, if he said,
absolutely,
give all my delegates to Gavin Newsom, but I still then all the delegates have a big debate. It's also so weird. It's like they're just pushing out the guy that they democratically elected in the name of saving democracy. Like whoever they is, the media elites, the political elites. And
you're hearing that even within the Democratic Party, there are those who are saying, Donna Brazile, one of the big voices out there saying, this is what caucus goers and primary voters decided. More than 3,000 of these delegates have already been awarded to President Biden. He would absolutely have to open it up. But I got to think he would have a real issue with going beyond his vice president. They made history with her. They've been partners in this thing. There are also warnings out there from a lot of folks who say, listen, she polls better than you do with voters of color, with younger people. She's been your point person on abortion, which has been the best issue for Democrats the last couple of years. She makes the most sense. And a lot of people out there saying, this is going to be seen as a big problem if you leapfrog her and go to another white guy. I mean, that's not going to play well with a chunk of the base who is not going to understand why you would choose this woman to be one heartbeat away from the presidency. And then when it really came time to support her, you didn't. I think President Biden is very, very well aware of that problem.
What do you think, Shannon, about Kamala, really quickly? Like, if Kamala becomes the nominee, for me, all the cultural issues go to the front of the line. Mm-hmm. For everything. Any argument or criticism made of Kamala will somehow be tied back into misogyny or racism. Abortion, as you pointed out, pushed to the front of the debate issues. What I wonder is the public's tolerance or appetite for that. It's just so... We're 4 years into this kind of fevered pitch racial reconciliation of America. And if it's Kamala, I can just imagine that's the protective cloak used to shield off any criticism. I just don't know where America is on, okay, enough of the race card.
It's going to be tricky, I think, if that's what happens. Everybody's going to have to be very careful about the conversations that they have, but there can certainly be political attacks. I think back about a memo that we got about 4 years ago that came out from a number of groups that said, be careful how you talk about women of color, women on the ticket. Don't use things that refer to their appearance. Don't talk about them being shrill or ambitious. I don't know if you remember this memo, but it went out from a number of these organizations and it went out to the media saying, you need to be careful how you talk about these folks. It was before, just before the vice president was named to be the vice president on the ticket, but it was a warning about how you use language to talk about women and women of color specifically. So you got to know that those groups who issued that warning 4 years ago are very much going to be watching very closely every bit of a jab that goes towards the vice president if she ends up at the top of the ticket. But you got to be able to have political conversations. And like I said, I think the thing with the border is going to be tough for her, but she's been a great advocate for them on the issue that does drive Democratic voters, the base to the polls, and that's abortion. And it is on a number of state ballots this fall. So she'll be very effective on that front if she ends up at the top of the ticket, or the way that they're using her now as the number 2.
So last question for you. And I'm looking at the Open Lab polling that you tweeted about. You wondered who leaked this, by the way.
Yeah.
And her polling is, at this point, according to those polls, better than Joe Biden. But so is Whitmer's. So is Newsom's. It's kind of, at this point, everyone's is better than Joe Biden's. And Buttigieg, by the way, was the best, I think, of all of them. I forgot him, but I think he polled the best in most of those swing states.
Well, remember, he was such a headache for President Biden in Iowa and New Hampshire back in 2020.
Who do you think has the best chance to beat Trump? Like, of those, who would have the most appeal against Trump?
I mean, I think you got to go somebody with name recognition. I mean, if you really want to do a contrast on age issues, you go with Secretary Buttigieg. Now, he is a cabinet member. I think Gavin Newsom has some real problems that will be easily targeted by Republicans and conservatives if they go after him. But he also super telegenic. He's a very likable guy. I just don't know. I mean, Gretchen Whitmer, allegedly, she turned down an offer to join President Biden on the ticket last time around, but she is very popular on the left, and I think that she would fill a lot of holes for them. I mean, being a woman, being a lot younger, and apparently
why did she turn it down?
So we'll see.
She should.
What's that?
What a mistake! Like she could be on the. Why did she turn that down? What a mistake! She could be on the doorstep of the presidency.
I think that there was real concern from her team last time around that Biden wasn't going to win, and potentially she would be tied to a losing ticket, hurting her future ambitions and efforts. And maybe that's not true at all, but the report was that they wanted her on the ticket and she took a pass.
Wow. All right, Shannon Bream, I hope you get some time tomorrow. Do you? Are you going to be able to celebrate the 4th of July?
I am going to work from home. I will be wearing flag-themed apparel, and there might be a cookout.
Okay.
How about you?
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to a lake. I don't know what I'm going to do. I intend to be on some water.
Best place to be.
And yeah, well hydrated. All right,
enjoy,
Shannon. So I hope you happy 4th of July. Thank you.
You too.
There she goes, the host of Fox News Sunday and the chief legal correspondent for Fox News, Shannon Bream. Fascinating conversation. I'm telling you, take a vacation, have a good time, celebrate America. Maybe watch Independence Day. I've been thinking about that. I want to revisit Independence Day. But don't tune too far out. It feels like it's happening. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Check me out tonight on Jesse Waters Primetime. I'll also be there on Friday night. I also will be working on Fox and Friends this weekend. But as for the Will Cain Show, which I hope you subscribe to at Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, I will see you again on Monday.